Okay. Please state your name and your birthday.
My name is Tony Castillo Jr. I was born August 10, 1945.
What city?
Fort Worth, Texas.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to start with a few simple questions. Where did your family live before coming to the U.S. or coming to Fort Worth? What country, what city, what state, or if your family's from the U.S., what part of the U.S.?
I was born here, but my grandparents are from Mexico. On my mom's side, they came over here when they were young. My grandmother did, and then eventually met her boyfriend and got married, my grandfather, and they wind up going to Fredericksburg, and from Fredericksburg to Fort Worth, and that's where it all started, there by Texas Steel. It's known as the Barrio.
Okay, and they went to Fredericksburg, Texas, when they came here?
Yes, from Mexico. They came from Mexico and then to Fredericksburg. That's where my grandma told me.
Okay, and do you know what part of Mexico your family's from?
Close to Mexico City. It was a little ranch. I don't really.
In the state of Mexico then?
Yes.
Okay, so from central Mexico. So you're a U.S. citizen and your parents were Mexican citizens?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And on my grandfather, my dad's side, if you want to know.
No, yes, absolutely.
His dad was from Italy.
Okay.
And his wife, my other grandma, was from El Paso, I believe. She's Indian, full-blooded Apache.
Okay.
So
and do you remember what part of Italy?
What?
What part of Italy your family was from?
No, I can't. I know there were architects over there, so I was told.
Okay, so your family was an interracial family, Mexican and Italian and Native American.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that's very interesting. I'm going to go into more detail about your experiences here in Fort Worth growing up and your life here. Could you please list any community or social or political organizations you have been a part of?
You mean like a center, or I probably didn't understand.
If you've been a part of any community organizations or political organizations?
No, just the Worthside Center at one time.
What center?
Worthside Center on South Side.
Okay, and
that was after I got a little bit older.
And were you a member? Did you have what was your position?
No, I just did a little volunteer work. I knew the man that was in charge, and I'd go over and help out a little bit, and I'd take my grandkids. But as far as being a employee or something like that, nothing like that.
Okay, were you? What was this center's goals, and what did you do in this center?
We'd set up tables, get chairs ready when they were going to have some festivity or something, a little quinceañera birthday party.
Okay. Is it like a Latino cultural center?
Yeah, something similar to that.
Okay.
It's right there by Echo Lake off of 35 and Perry.
So did you is your Mexican community, does it have a lot of gatherings there? Does it?
Well, yes, they did, but I moved away as I got older, and I went to a different neighborhood, Wedgwood, so I kind of got away from it, so it was kind of far to come back to participate in any gatherings or what have you.
Okay, so what neighborhood did you grow up in?
South Side.
South Side?
Which is called La Fundición area, which is between Buried, Hemp Hill, and Seminary and 35.
Okay, so growing up, what school did you go to?
I went to Worth Heights for a little bit in my younger days, and went there for a year, and then my mom and her husband decided to go to Chicago. And we'd come back and then pick cotton in the summer, and chop cotton, and then go back for the winter. And we did that two or three times, but stayed up there from 1950 till 1960. Then I came back home.
Okay, and so you chopped cotton here during the summers in this area?
Yeah, in the summer we'd pick cotton in Mansfield, Texas over here.
Okay.
And the only thing I liked about it was eating the tacos.
I can imagine it was.
It was hot.
I worked in the fields too growing up. Not cotton, thankfully. It was a little bit easier than cotton, but definitely my favorite part of the day were the burritos. Did you go down to Central Texas or just Mansfield?
No, just to Mansfield. We'd all load up in the morning and go, big old truck come pick us up and then take us. It did that for just during the time of the picking cotton, and then other than that, after that we'd go back to Chicago.
Okay, so you lived in Chicago for a few years, and then you went to school here.
Yes, I went to school here, Worth Height, for a little bit, for a year or two, and then Chicago I went for a couple of years until I had to quit and help my mom start working at a very young age.
Okay, can I ask you what age you started working?
Believe it or not, at 8 years old.
Okay, here in Fort Worth or in Chicago?
Well, I was picking cotton at 5 years old, and I picked it till I was 7, and then we didn't come back till I didn't come back till 1960. So I started working in Chicago. It's called a hot dog stands, and they would sell hot dogs and hamburgers and Polish sausage, and I'd sweep the floor and every evening, and they'd give me a sack of French fries and hot dogs, and they shut it down at 6, so that's how I'd help my mom out.
Okay. And then when did you come back to Fort Worth?
I came back in 1960. Actually, I had to run away because it was too rough with my stepfather, and I come down here and I helped odds and ends, cutting yards, and my cousins were carpenters, so they picked me up until 17. My uncle decided to put me in the Texas Steel Company, and so I can help out my grandma, and that was in 1962 and a half, and I had to lie about my age.
Okay.
Because since I was the third generation, they knew my uncle, and my uncle worked there,
So
great uncle.
It was a family line working there.
It was, and so the man said, well, how are you? But you won't be covered till you turn 18, so don't get hurt.
Okay. And really quick, involving your job, since it was a family line, can I have the names of the people that were in this job before you?
The relatives?
Yes.
Yes, it was my uncle, Angel Castillo, and then his uncle, which is my great uncle, Gregorio Vasquez, and some other relatives too. Do you want their names or just that's enough?
Yeah, the other names would be great too if they worked there with you.
Jorge Martinez. Let's see. Manuel Gasca. Let's see. I can't think. Furman Castillo. Angel Castillo Jr., Willie Martinez, cousin, and Mariano Castillo, and a lot of us had nicknames, so I can't think of it.
Okay, that's fine. And so when did your family start working in the steel mill here?
In 1922, I believe, my grandfather.
In the early 20s since your grandfather?
Pardon me?
In the early 20s since your
grandfather. In the early 20s.
Okay, wow. And do you remember any labor leaders or political leaders in this Mexican community, either working the steel mill or outside of it?
Like, for example, what?
Like a labor leader who tried to organize the steel workers.
Oh, okay. No, not really. We just, as soon as you got to a certain age, you had to help out. Mm-hmm. And me, I didn't have no choice. From the hot dog stand to a steel mill, you know. But no, the family will encourage the family, you know.
Okay.
And that's how it went, you know. And excuse me.
No problem.
That's the way it was, you know. As far as somebody, I'm sure they were, but I didn't go vendor much, you know, out the neighborhood. I was just there.
Okay. So you don't really remember any community leaders, whether they were political activists or church leaders or anything like that?
No, I wasn't much involved in that. I was always working.
Okay.
You know, and if I did, I didn't know how to read that much and write. So,
Okay.
You know, but I was always helping out though.
Okay. Very interesting. And just to go back a little bit then, do you remember, since part of the focus of the program, the oral history program that Dr. Crockmore is doing, is relations between black and brown people in Texas. Do you remember any of the relations happening in your days in Fort Worth between black and brown people, whether it was political or just everyday interaction?
Oh yes, I remember when we picked cotton. At lunchtime, you know, we'd go to the store. We'd jump on my uncle's truck or get in his truck, and it was strange because we walked. As soon as you got off, there wasn't that many people. It was a small town, you know, 2 blocks long, I guess, downtown, and they would look at us, you know, and my uncle would say, "Don't look at them," you know. And then I remember seeing one Friday there was. We never got in trouble. They never said nothing to us over there. And there was a fire going on, but they had hung. He wasn't the man, but he was like a scarecrow, and they painted him black, and they were burning him up. That was back then, and I had to be in the early '50s. So I don't know what happened. You know, I guess they didn't like the African Americans. I guess the blacks and us too. I don't know. It wasn't easy for us. So we stayed among our neighborhood, you know, and we'd go going like when I lived in South Side. We crossed Hemp Hill, going west to Hemp Hill, Texas Steel. Mm-hmm. Over there, the white area was they'd run us off, you know.
Okay.
You know, I guess they were afraid that we'd take their peaches or whatever, you know.
So you remember Fort Worth being segregated, where black people and Mexican
yes,
people were allowed to interact with the white population?
It wasn't as it is now. It was really, you know, I remember I had my encounters too. You go to the store, mm-hmm. and of course Chicago was a different city, so you know, you can go anywhere over there, you know, mm-hmm. but over here and look at you, you know, if whenever I went out of the neighborhood, they stare at you till you got out, you know.
Okay.
Or after, when we got married in '65, my wife being half Hispanic, half Walia, you know, white, we'd go to downtown and I'd be buying a shirt or something, and they'd wait on the white people first, and I was there before they were, you know. The lady just put her head down, and that happened several times until I got a little frustrated. I finally spoke up, and the guy said he was right. He was here before I was, and so she didn't bother her. She still treated me like, you know, not bad, but I guess my money wasn't good enough for her, you know.
Not like how she treated the Anglo customers. So were you ever explicitly told to not enter a place? Did you ever see any signs that said no Mexicans allowed or anything like that?
Oh yeah, oh yes, thank you. When I went to work at Texas Steel in 1962, I'm glad you said that. I saw a sign there, and I told my uncle about it, and it said, whites only. Mm-hmm. And I said, I didn't read that well, you know, but I understood that, you know, and I confronted him about it, and he said, "Don't say nothing, be quiet." I said, "Well, where's our water fountain then?" He said, no, we drink out. I said, we're not white. It says whites only. And that was that. So he said, don't start no trouble. I said, I'm not starting no trouble, but, and then they eventually they wound up taking the sign. Then they had a shower for us, for the Hispanics. And then they had a shower for the white. Us were upstairs and the whites were downstairs. And the black African Americans way, a good distance,
Okay.
So that was segregated back then.
So even African Americans and Mexican people were separated from each other.
We were, but we worked together though. But when we showered up different.
Okay. Do you remember the work relations? Did the Anglo workers and the black workers and the Mexican workers, they worked together? Did they get along, or was there still separation on the work floor?
No, we worked together, but in the mill, that's a good question. In the mill, they call it, our department was a rolling mill. We made the rebars, for the highways and what have you. And it was, we were the heart and soul, the Mexicanos.
Okay.
And we had one African American working with us. He was the only one. And then on the electric furnace where they melted the steel and all that, they went through the process. There was all blacks, but there were some whites and a couple of Hispanics, But that, I guess because them being so real tall, it required height,
Okay.
And then, let's see, what else? Other than that, I don't remember. But we all worked together, though. When it came to work, we worked,
Okay.
as one.
Okay. That's really interesting to hear. The
And
unity but separation at the same time.
And across the street, since Texas Steel paid fairly good, little did I know anything about it, money, back in the early 60s. A lot of us went across the street, and there was 5, 6, 7, 9 beer joints.
Okay.
I don't know if that's the correct word, but we'd all go across the street. It was called coffee cup, and I'd go with my uncle and drink a beer. But I didn't like beer that much, right? So we'd go, and then one day I noticed that the African Americans were coming into the back, and then I didn't pay attention because we were facing this way. And then I told him, I seen some, African Americans come in, some blacks, and where are they? He said, no, they sit back there in the back. They got their own little room.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't know that. I said, so it was, and then there was a lounge down the street too. They wouldn't allow the Mexicans in.
Okay.
They wouldn't allow us in. It was a.
So they didn't. I'm sure they didn't allow African Americans in the lounge either.
No, they
So because in Mexicanos, I guess we're a little closer to being white, or some Mexicanos were also could pass as white. Didn't Mexicanos have a little more leeway of these places they could enter that you remember than African Americans?
I think we did have the ones that, like you said, had a little advantage of a light skin, tan. And I'm glad you're asking me these questions, because this actually, and I've heard this before, I came down in 1960, and little did I know that who were my cousins, right? So there was a Pantaploy club down Hemphill and close to Magnolia. And we were going on a bus, and they said, Tony, because I had a nickname,
Okay.
Mocker, they call me. I don't mock nobody, but it's Mocker. And he said, don't start no trouble. When we get on the bus, if nobody in the bus, right? And I rode the bus a lot over there in Chicago. He said, don't start no trouble. I said, what do you mean? I said, because I like to talk a lot, and I was more advanced with than they were. They lay back. So I'm the last one to get in. And so they'll go straight to the back, Oh, they had told me to sit in the back.
Okay.
I wasn't going to sit in the back, I'm used to sitting where I want to sit. So I give my dime. It was 1960.
Okay.
And then I sat down, just on purpose. I sat down behind the bus driver. And the bus driver says, what are you doing? I said, sitting down. I didn't know too much, He says, well, you need to sit in the back. I said, I'm sitting here. He said, well, you need to sit in the back. I said, I don't see no sign for me to sit in the back. He said, well, you need to sit with those guys over there. I said, I'm not sitting over there. And then my cousins were there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Tony, Mocker, come on back. I said, well, I'm going to sit over there just because they're calling me to go sit over there. I said, I'd stay here.
Okay.
And he's getting ready to get me out, throw me off the bus, you know. And I couldn't believe, but still, a lot of us rode buses, you know, from what I hear, you know, go downtown to get their groceries.
Mm-hmm.
And Leonard's back then. I wound up going to the back. That was one of the experiences that I got when I came back home.
So there was, from what I'm gathering, a lot of times there wasn't necessarily signs that said no Mexicans allowed, or there wasn't signs that said Mexicans and black people sit in the back, but it was just known. It was unspoken a lot of times.
I guess, I don't know, you know. I didn't ride the bus much, you know. Did a lot of walking. I don't know if I answered your question correctly.
No, you did. And but when you rode the bus, you didn't see a sign, but people still separated. It was still segregated.
Oh, okay, yes, that's a little bit, because I didn't get to ride the bus, but they always went to the back, you know.
Okay.
I didn't. You know, I sit where I want to sit, you know. That's what I grew up in Chicago, so you sit where you want to sit, you know.
Okay. And when did you start noticing segregation fading in Fort Worth?
Fading? Or
beginning to go away?
Oh, I want to say in the 70s, a little bit, maybe in the middle 70s or early 70s, and we were starting to expand with restaurants, you know, Hispanic restaurants, and get more Hispanics into office work, you know, and which that was good, and I admire that, to see a Hispanic up at for where we belong, you know.
Okay.
And I believed in that. You know, we work hard.
Mm-hmm.
Little did I know what I was believing in, but it was true.
Okay, and did you ever notice any pushback when it was beginning to desegregate?
Like, for example?
Did you notice any people still wanting segregation and still treating Mexicans?
Oh, yes, it still exists.
Mm-hmm.
It still exists. It just depends where you're at, you know,
Okay.
and if you're by yourself but it's starting to break loose a little bit, but it still exists, you know, it's still out there,
Okay.
you know, but it's just so many of us now that they don't do it as much, but it's out there. And even the neighborhoods, you know,
Mm-hmm.
they kind of look at you, but I just, like my mom says, just hold your head up, walk forward, you know.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I think that's a good point, since you mentioned your mom, to get a little bit back to your family. And could you tell me your parents' names? And you told me where they were from originally, and your grandparents, but do you remember, could you tell me your parents' name and how many siblings you had?
Well, first of all, my mom and dad never got married.
Okay.
And my mom's name was Nellie Sanchez, and I had two stepbrothers and 3 stepsisters, you know, and my mom, I had an older sister that they didn't get married neither, her and her first husband or boyfriend. And then she was born here in Fort Worth, my mom was, and he was from stepfather, I don't know where he was from originally. Grandma and grandpa were from Mexico, and my dad's side, they were born in El Paso, and my grandma his mom was born in El Paso, and a little town of El Paso, and I had.
Do you remember what town near El Paso?
No, I just found out recently, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I lived in El Paso for a few years, so if I mention a few names, is that okay with you to see?
Sure, go ahead.
I know a lot of people lived in San Elizario, Socorro, Fabians, or Canotillo. Do any of those names sound familiar?
I think what my cousin told me, it was east of town.
East of town.
East of town. It's a little, right there in El Paso, maybe a neighborhood. I can't recall.
Okay, well, that's more than fine.
Thank you for telling me, though.
Do you remember your dad's name?
Johnny,
And
I have something interesting to tell you.
go ahead.
My dad told my brother, my stepbrother, and he told me I didn't get to see my dad that much, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you ever remember Cesar Romero, but he kind of favored him. That's how he was very light complexion. And I guess they got that from my grandfather's side. But I got a little time when they shut the Texas Steel down, and I didn't know where I was going to go and all that because I didn't have an education. All I knew was the steel business work. Anyway, I went to visit my dad, and I didn't know how to approach him, you know. But anyway, get to what I'm going to tell you. I know you haven't got much time. We were there, and I gave him a couple of dollars, and little did he know that I needed those $2.
Yeah.
But he wanted to drink beer, and then he's feeling a little good, and he said, "Son," and he played 4 instruments. He was a chef at Texas Hotel. I don't know if you remember hearing that, for President Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
When he came down in 1963. He stayed there at the Texas Hotel. But my dad was a chef, and like I said, he was very light complexion, and he was in the service. Anyway, he had told me, he said, "Son, did you know that I fed that man, this man's last meal, cooked his last meal?" And I said, "The man that they shot, he just came out of left field somewhere, you know." I didn't understand, and with it, and you know, the one in Dallas. Oh, I said, "Really?" And he remembered what he ate for breakfast. He fixed him his breakfast: soft scrambled eggs, French toast, and jelly. He likes and orange juice, and that was his favorite, you know. And then I read an article just recently that the man, you know, his anniversary, Kennedy assassination, the man that cooked his meal. It wasn't that man. That man took his breakfast upstairs, but it wasn't him. It was my dad that fixed his last meal. And I asked my stepbrother just last year. They were trying to get some information about my grandfather from Italy, and I said, "Let me ask you something." He told me. He said, "Dad, tell me that all the time. He fixed that man's last meal, and I'll be." And he says, when my dad first told me about it, he said there was 2 men in a suit. He couldn't understand why they were standing there. He didn't know who. My dad didn't know who the president was. You know, mm-hmm. he didn't know much about it. All it was inside work all the time. Didn't read, like, you know.
So they were watching your dad make the meal just to make sure everything.
Yes, and then this other man, and then I asked this man when I worked at Alcon for a little bit, and at the office, and he had posters of the military, you know, Air Force. He was a pilot at one time, whatever. And I asked him, and we got to know each other, and I said, "You know, I'm going to tell you something about my dad." And I said, I didn't know if to believe my dad at first. And when I told him what I just got to telling you, he says, "Was your dad in the military?" I said, "Yes." He said, "That was your dad. He did cook," because he said he's read about Kennedy the last 25, 40 years. He's been reading about Kennedy, and that was his favorite breakfast. And when he told me that, I felt a little more bitter, you know, because, but I didn't know. My dad said, like, there was 2 men watching him, and then another person that was going to take
the meal to the president. That's a very interesting story, and I'm glad you told it to us.
We don't, you know. Thank you. I can't verify it, but he sure said. He said, "Dad," I said, "Son, I don't know what those men were watching me. I never have nobody watch me, you know."
Okay, and do you have your dad's last name or your mom's last name?
No, they never got married. I had my mom's last name.
Okay, so can I have just after this really interesting story, can I have your dad's full name?
My dad's
full name?
Johnny Reyes. Just Johnny Reyes.
Okay, and just to make sure that, what city was he born in?
I just visited his cemetery. Went to cemetery. I don't remember.
Okay, was he born here in Texas or in Mexico?
No, my dad was in El Paso.
Okay, so your dad was born in the El Paso area.
Uh-huh.
Okay, well, thank you for telling me that. And you had several siblings. Can you tell me their names if you remember them? The names of your brothers and sisters?
Oh, so the oldest one, stepbrother and sisters.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the only child. You know, it's what, anyway, it's Frances Carrasco. She's the oldest, and now I'm the second. And then Dolores Giriego, I guess.
Okay.
And Valentin Jr. Sanchez, and then Martin Sanchez, and then Clara Sanchez.
Okay, and that's from your mom's? Or?
Yes, her husband.
Okay, so they grew up, I'm guessing they grew up in Chicago.
Yes, let's see. I believe Valentino Jr. was born here, I believe, and Dolores and Francis. And Marty was born in Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa. I guess that's when I didn't go that time with them to work on the fields.
Okay.
And Clara was born, I believe, here in Fort Worth.
Okay, and on your dad's side, you said you also had a brother on your dad's side, correct?
He had family, you know, so I'm glad you asked. He has 2 sons and a daughter. The daughter is the oldest one, and I can't think of her name. I don't know her last name. I never
interacted with her?
We just talked a couple of times, but I know Mike. Mike was Mike and Ricky.
Okay, well, you're half brothers.
Right.
And they grew up here in Fort Worth since
yes.
your dad was working here. Okay, and just to finish up, I'm going to ask you, did you go to any local churches here?
I go to MacLehart over here on Seminary, Southside Catholic Church.
And did you go there as a young man or how?
I went there as a young man when we were here, you know, when we lived here, and then when I came back home a little bit, and then that's where I got married. We got married.
Okay.
50 years been married.
Can I have your wife's name?
Mignon, Mignon, like filet mignon.
Okay.
Castillo.
And she's half Mexican American and half Anglo, correct?
Right.
And do you have children?
Yes.
Can I have your children's name as well?
Let's see. Sandra Denise Farina. I don't know how to spell Farina. And it's Tony the third Castillo and Jonathan Castillo.
Okay. Did they grow up here in Fort Worth?
Yes.
Are they still here?
They're still here.
Okay.
Oh, except for Sandra. She lives outside Chicago. I'm sorry.
Okay, so she moved up there as an adult. Okay, and just a last question. Do you have anything else you would like to add? Anything that you would find important or interesting that you want to include?
I was glad I worked Texas Steel
because
I didn't have an education. And I didn't know about the value of money at the time. But it taught me to work, you know, and work with other people. And so how hard it was to work there. We didn't have no fans. The fans we had was outside. We just had the roof on some of the parts, you know. But it was still so hot, dangerous, that I don't know how you just got used to it. You know, I just got used to it. And I didn't realize how important it was to make steel and dangerous. And then the environment was very dangerous, very dangerous. I look back and I said, you probably could have used an armored suit to work here, you know.
And what did you do after the plant closed down?
Good question. The older people, the veterans, we didn't know, you know. They've been there forever, you know. And I said, man, what am I going to do, you know? And he says, hey, you're young. You're still young, Tony. But they didn't know that I didn't know how to read and write, you know. But I played ball, and I come from a baseball family. My family's my uncle's uncle. So that helped me in my job when I went to look for a job. This guy says, and I also played a little golf, you know. And one of the co-workers, he went over there and he says, go over there and tell them that you worked over there. They'll hire you in a heartbeat. And sure enough, they did, but I didn't know how to, so I had to use my street smart, you know. So I got hired on it. I let my wife fill my application. And the lady said, I think you're lying to me. I said, no, I forgot my driver's license. But anyway, once I got in there, I never knew how to read a router, you know. Mm-hmm. You know, I didn't know how to, I didn't know.
So you started working, where was it that you started working?
At Martin Sprocket.
Okay, is that a baseball place or is it?
No, they made sprockets, but the manager that I worked for liked baseball, softball. Okay. And little did he know that I played a lot of ball. So
okay.
So he saw that what I did in practice, and he gave me a raise right away. He said,
okay.
And then he helped me out. And he told the supervisor to help me. You know, he said, I don't. Anyway, they'd help me.
So you used your outside talents.
Yes,
and
it worked, and it helped me. You know, it was totally different from steel, but it required using measurements and reading blueprints. And then from there, after my 16 years there, I went to Alcon. My son got me in there as a custodian, and then I had to learn the yes sir, no sir, and have a good day, and all that. Mm-hmm. Different environment too, you know. Absolutely. Okay. But and then I retired after 50 years, you know.
Okay, so you're retired right now.
Yes, I'm retired.
Well, thank you for telling us your stories, and they were very interesting, and we also have an archivist downstairs to copy your pictures, and you can tell her a few things about the pictures if you want.
Okay, yes. Do you want to see the pictures or no?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. See, I just brought a couple of, a number of them. But this is the way it starts out. The first, it goes from 1 to 7. That right there is there's a man that's controlling the billet. You'll see the next picture. See the hook with a hook. See that man with a hook there? There's a bunch of steel on that picture right there. Mm-hmm. The second one. That's the way it starts. See, I'm showing you from the beginning. Okay. And then they go through our furnace, and then the next one, that's how they go to the catch. See how that's me right there. You're looking at that's coming out. You do not know when that's. All you have to do is look over your side of the table, and you know the steel's traveling like a light. You know when you turn the light, and you have to catch it. It's all judging. You know.
Okay.
It's all timing, and that's the way it looks. You know, it really looks easy, but it's dangerous. You know.
Looks like a true skill to learn.
And I was lucky to get those pictures. I didn't know I had them. I just got them last year. And that was our logo there, Texas Steel. That was that. And here's I was just going to show you something. That's what we got $6 an hour. We never got a raise, but give you an idea what. As a matter of fact, there's 2 of them, and you know, so I made some. I know that's not important, but I think that was one of my last checks there, and I didn't know I had them. I was looking through something, you know, and so it was just something.
Just to wrap up, I actually think these are very important, just to show how people lived and how much money they earned, and show the real life of people in Fort Worth in the 60s. And what year did it close?
83, at our department. And I went to Leonard's when I told you that the lady was waiting. I was next. Anyway, after losing my job, Mounties and Striplings, they were downtown at one time. Anyway, I was getting behind on bills and all that. You know, like when something shuts down and everything. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I told the lady, she says, "Oh, he says, let me tell you something. I work with you." She says, "I know you're behind and all that." And very nice elderly lady. And so I went back there to see about my bills. She says, "You, Texas Steel, and Lockheed, and another company, Bell, were the big companies in Texas, Fort Worth at that time. So they compared us because we made some good money. Little did I know anything about saving money. But anyway, that's how big Texas Steel was.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay. Now I appreciate it. Now I hope I answered you right.
Oh, you really gave me some